Cincinnati's ready for the Big 12. It was time for them.
I am fired up.
It's a blessing to be able to be in this league with y'all, putting on for UC.
Cincinnati, a basketball school for...
And there he goes. Touchdown! Bearcats! Raquama again. Another slam inside.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the GoBeercats podcast. I'm Brandon.
Yep, switch sides.
That's Darin. And as you can see here, from the top here, we have a very special guest with us today, Kevin Wallace. I'm going to let Darin give a full rundown of why Kevin is joining us today, bringing us a little bit of a different topic this week as we head into the quote-unquote off-season that really isn't an off-season here in college sports. But it is about that time when I don't want to call it conference realignment this time, Darin, starts revving up talk. But there's a whole revolutionized talk that just came out, and that's sort of the topic of our discussion here this week. Darin, why don't you introduce the listeners, the viewers here to Kevin Wallace?
Yeah, this is Kevin Wallace, host of the Post Cincy, all things FC Cincinnati, fan-run podcast, probably the best in my opinion. We go back to really kind of pushing the culture for FC Cincinnati soccer in Cincinnati from the fan perspective. But also a not just soccer, but heavy UC enthusiast. He was around, in the forums, especially the first time we had Big 12 realignment. So he is no stranger to college sports. But yeah, what's that? Pro rel in college football. We will discuss that and more. But first, it is time for a beer. Brought to you by the Delhi Liquor Store. They have you covered for all your liquor, wines, and spirits and beers with new beer drops almost every day. But in addition, you can get cigars as well for all special occasions. Be sure to check out the downstairs tap room as well, where our favorite teacher coach, Brandon, usually works in the summer. And, come say hi. Usually updates are on Facebook. Today, I am drinking the last of my Capy snacks. Been loving it. Fruit ale, fruit punch as they call it. 5% alcohol, as we discussed, and I've been enjoying it. How about you, Brandon?
Darin and I went pretty heavy last night. We had some people over to our house. We did a beer share, so friends bring over different beers, and there's you sample them all, and we certainly did that. So I don't even know if I can do this today, but this is Buzzer Beater from Prairie Artisan Ales. Hopefully it's nothing crazy. It's supposed to be a little bit of a sour. As soon as I poured it, though, it looks like it's about to be crazy. So wish me luck here as I try to get through this one on a not a complete struggle bus of a day, but struggle bus of enough. That's for sure.
I feel it. And Kevin, I know I kind of gave you a lowdown. Did you bring anything with the class to share today?
Oh yeah, got the American Lager from Old 50 West, a good old 4.5. It's a good Sunday afternoon, early evening, easy drinker. It'll be perfect for the conversation we're about to dive into. So
love it, and there you go. That was time for a beer. Brought to you by Dale High Liquor. Kevin, anything I missed in the introduction to you there that you'd like to let the people know about?
No, I mean, the only thing I would say, and this is, do not take this as a critique of the intro. Loved the intro. Is the podcast particularly. If you love a soccer podcast, or if you're looking for an FCC podcast, the Cincy PostCast. That's what you can throw into the old search box, and that's what you'll find from us. So yeah, that's other than that, the Post Cincy. You can find us on Twitter, the internet when we get around to bothering to publish a written article or two. Yeah, it's a good time. So no, very, very, very happy to be here. Excited. You mentioned pro rel and a sport that's not soccer, and my ears perk up a little bit there. So let's get into it.
Love it. This we kind of had the idea to really discuss this. Obviously, it's not quite in the zeitgeist this week because it dropped a few weeks ago, but mainly the Athletic posted an article from Andrew Martin and Stuart Mandel about the inside the college football Super League, one powerful group's idea to fix a dead system. It really didn't go over too many of the plans themselves, but it really kind of took you into the minds of College Sports Tomorrow, or CST. And their main, I won't call it mission statement necessarily, but the idea is to kind of give a lot of the bigger brands, specifically in college football, collective bargaining power when it comes to media rights. And so they want to put under one umbrella where they can kind of bargain overall. Now this also kind of forms into the idea of a breakaway league from the NCAA. Also, they're big on the train of NIL. These college athletes need to get paid, and so they want to help pay them. Not mentioned in that article, though, is the further details. I guess leak would be the best term. This comes from Daniel Libet and Eben Navi Williams. That's a slide deck, pitch deck for the concept was found. And basically it has 7 leagues, seven conferences, and 1 extra division as well. And we'll get a little bit further into that later, which is going to play into the whole concept. But what did you guys think as you started, reading these?
Yeah, I'll jump in here and say I thought this was super interesting, and honestly, it reads a little desperate if you check out who's behind this. So a couple of the public names, at least associated with college athletics here, are Syracuse's chancellor and West Virginia's president. West Virginia and Syracuse are, let's say, mid-tier brands, right? It's not Ohio State and Michigan. It's not Alabama looking for this. These are teams, these are schools that could be left behind in a you can imagine a hypothetical Big Ten SEC merger, right? These are teams that would not be a part of whatever that would look like. And this is sort of their attempt to regain control over their seat at the table of being a part of the big boy seats. And you've seen that with the Pac-12 dissolving, where it was very clear that you can be the Pac-12 and you can have the world's largest endowments. And I think Stanford has quite literally the largest endowment. At least they go neck and neck with Harvard, and they get left behind. Nobody wants them. They gotta beg and plead to get into the ACC, which is about to go through the exact same thing if Florida State and Clemson are pretty good at lawyering, right? Like they're gonna end up in the exact same spot. So I did think that this was interesting to see a play from schools that I'll say, as a UC fan, are kind of at UC's level, that are desperate and seeing how they're projecting out and realizing they're going to be left behind. I think this is an interesting moment in college sports as to who's actually in charge here.
Yeah. Brandon, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, like when I was reading this article, I kind of felt the same thing as Kevin said here. I was like, who elected these 2 guys? Because the people on the side of the professional side, the guy that's very high up in the NFL. There's another guy that they were the name escapes me here, that they were talking about, who seems like they have some big sway here, and they have like some clout to be able to get some stuff done. And then I kind of wondered why those 2 universities were the ones being represented in this group. I didn't know if that meant that this thing has 0 chance of getting done because the powers that be in college football aren't involved. And the way the article read, it kind of seemed like they didn't want to be involved either. So, that I thought was a great question coming up. And I have some other concerns, like if this would happen. I don't know if we want to get into that yet. I can certainly save that. But as I read the article, I came up with some concerns here that I thought were pretty glaring. And I don't know if they just thought those through or they're not worried about these things or what. But interesting idea they have going here.
Yeah. It definitely reads desperate. I think, obviously they're trying to get ahead of it, but the other thing is they sort of have, they're saying the quiet part out loud for what the SEC and Big 12 commissioners potentially want to do. So they're putting that discussion, out in the public and offering, it's like, hey, we know you want this, and we know you're going to, and the other quiet part is we know you're going to need some teams to beat up on as well, because you can't just round robin yourselves, consistently and have just 2 16-team conferences at that point. It cuts down the field way too much, breaks the illusion, if you will. We know what teams have the money. We know who has the power and the ability. But it kind of helps hold some tradition together. So I think it's a play to, not to put someone's name in your mouth and collectively bring them to the table, even though they were going to do it without you. And the other thing is, Rollup name comes up. He was the mastermind behind, I think, the NFL's TV deal, which was almost 110 billion. And so now he's kind of set his eyes on college sports, because this collective, the CST, is made up of obviously some school commissioners and athlete ADs, but some pro investors as well. So they're trying to get ahead of it essentially, but also entice the powers that be, who have all the actual power, to join them in that. And I mentioned having some smaller teams to beat up on. Looking at the divisions, they are broken down into, and I can probably share my screen here. They are broken down into some. There we go. Oh, wait, no, I thought I had it. Window. There we go. They are broken down into 7 divisions and 1 underleague. Obviously, as someone on that level, as Kevin mentioned, it's nice to see Cincinnati's name here and be on the potential right side of this. The Pac-12 that was sort of defunct is pulled right back together in this concept. But what jumps out in the highlight in red there is, like I said, the underleague division. Your Boise State, James Madison's, Liberty, Miami, New Mexico State, Toledo, Troy, Tulane, UNLV, and UTSA. Now, obviously, this is from their slide deck presentation, but these are sort of the bigger at-large schools in the G5 era, specifically last year. And so the concept from that second article would be that the at-larges each year would slide into this bottom 10 and replace whoever didn't, whoever didn't uphold their competitiveness. This is much like the concept, or I guess is the concept of pro-rel, promotion and relegation. This is why Kevin is here. This is a concept that is more familiar with the world of soccer or football. There's a loud clamoring for this in the U.S. soccer world. But for the people at home, Kevin, why don't you give us a introduction to the concept?
Yeah. So, if anybody has watched the Premier League or European soccer, you might have caught wind of this idea. If you watch the Welcome to Wrexham TV show, you were certainly introduced to this concept. But essentially, in England's probably the easiest example to use. So we'll focus on the English soccer league. So the Premier League is the top league in the land. You win the Premier League, you're the best team in England. That's the end all be all there. But the bottom 3 teams in the league, the 3 worst performing teams, are kicked out of the Premier League at the end of the season. They are no longer Premier League teams. They don't get to participate, with some asterisks, in the media rights deal that the Premier League has. They're out. And the 3 best teams from the division below, which is confusingly called the Championship, but the 3 best teams from the second division move up and take their place. And the same with the Championship. The bottom 3 teams of the Championship get relegated down to, again, very confusing, League One in England, and the top 3 teams work their way up. So it's a super fascinating way to build a league, basically, which is you kind of disincentivize the concept of tanking. You can't have a rebuilding year. You can't have all of your guys transfer out one year as the new coach takes over. You don't have the opportunity to be terrible for a season, because one bad season will see you kicked out of that league. And so it is interesting to see it introduced to college football. I will say that the way they've decided to do this, I think, could use some tweaks.
Yeah.
Okay. So just on the face of it, I love the idea of regional divisions. That's fun. That's what college football is supposed to be. If nothing else, it should be a fun thing that you get to go into bragging rights at work or, with family, where you interact with other people that are fans for schools nearby. Like if you're a UC fan, you probably mostly interact with Ohio State fans, Kentucky fans, Indiana fans. We don't get to play these schools ever in anything. It's super annoying. We do get Miami, and half the fan base wants to get rid of that game, right? Okay, so we've got some of that. But then, okay, so that's fine. I like regional. But then the under league is suddenly a national league. You got Boise and Tulane and Toledo and New Mexico and Liberty are all in one. What are we doing? There are other teams out west that you could put in a sort of Western division that then gets to promote up, or, the Midwest. Like, if you were to implement this now, the MAC champion getting promoted to the Big Ten and the worst Big Ten team getting demoted to the MAC is kind of perfectly situated geographically and how everything sort of aligns. It is insane that they've thought, yeah, Miami, Ohio would love to go play at Boise State for the opportunity to go get beat by Alabama in the first round of whatever playoff. And if they don't, we'll replace them with Central Michigan or whatever. Like, this is a very weird way that they've tried to get the buy-in from the also-rans of college football, I guess, that they've sort of been relegated to in this case.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting too, because from what I understand, the underleague division are protected. They're a protected class in this situation. Right. There's no risk of them going up or down. It's only, and with this, you'd have to not only obviously develop this, Super League as your top league, but you'd have to have hands in making the league below it. You would have to set rules and precedent for what it means to do well, outside of this Super League divisions. Yeah. Is everyone else in the I guess you would just call it the underleague. So on the underleague division, but I guess the underleague, which would be the second league itself, in the underleague, is everyone else playing regionally. And then the top teams that finish that year have the right to have a crazy travel schedule and get beat up on by the powers that be. And it's worth mentioning, tossing this back into soccer. The American soccer structure, even our top league, does not have this concept. It is made up of a bunch of NFL owners, other pro sports owners, or just general billionaires who want, to get into the sport itself. And they're often accused of being gatekeeping because it is a closed league and you pay this fee to, have this Division I status. and so the background of that, there's the criticism of that is often that it doesn't help grow the game. It doesn't keep the sport healthy. It makes it about the fans and keeps the sport pure. But this itself, with this is probably isn't not too unlike what they would roll out first if MLS was forced into having promotion relegation. And let me tell you, money rules all. When it comes to sports, one way or another. This, if anything, allows them to gatekeep more. Really gatekeep the sport. Brandon, as a I guess a normie in the soccer world and knew this concept, how does this sound to you?
Well, I mean, the division that we're placed in, I would sign up for that every day of the week and twice on Sunday. I love that. But one of the biggest questions I had was, does this underleague, are they playing in divisions as well? That you brought it up, because I was kind of confused as to what sort of pool they're jumping out of. And I don't know if that's just on part of the slide deck that didn't get leaked or released or what, but that was a really big question for me. And then if I know, when's the Big 12's deal with the TV deal done? Like 2030, 2031, something like that?
Yeah.
So this is all like dead on arrival if ESPN and Fox are not on board with it. If the articles mentioned that the group that is putting this together feels like there's more money to be drained out of the TV deals if you have like this collective bargaining type of thing that you can come to the table with. And I think in the article they said that TV executives said that was naive and didn't really shine a whole lot of like promising light on this from a TV network idea, which again, all about the regional rivalries, but I don't know if Fox and ESPN are about to divvy up and even more money for just because of this idea. I don't know. And if you don't have that, you have nothing to move forward on.
I wonder, and this is just spitballing at this point. I wonder if it's not so much draining the extra money, whereas keeping it intact. Like you said, Roll-Up had that $110 billion deal for the NFL network. Maybe you collectively get this, because right now it's multi-hundred millions for a lot of the bigger leagues in college football. You don't see if you can get to a $150 billion deal, and then also keep everyone tuning into those top matchups every week. And then maybe throw a bone and, cut a $50 billion deal for the underleague. Or maybe just collectively that gives them control of everything. How many of the 100 and I think we're pushing 150 now, 140 FBS teams with the potential addition of the American where the WAC and the ASUN are combining into, bringing other teams in, maybe they collectively, how many of the 150 teams want to join in on this and, not get left behind and don't drop to FCS and let NCAA rule that. Because I'm sure these teams don't have, the players themselves probably don't have a problem being called whatever champion of this, as long as they're playing the best competition and still getting a look at the NFL. So I don't wonder if it's just more about keeping that money to yourself and maybe getting a little bit extra out of it versus we're going to make X, Y, and Z extra money year over year. Because, it's finite. Market share is finite. You can only get so much of it. Kevin?
Yeah. And that's what I think is super fascinating is like who actually has the power here and then who this is challenging. So to me, this makes sense if you can convince like the Rutgers in Minnesota's and Vanderbilts of the world that their best interest isn't where this is headed. Yeah. And I think there's a fair argument for that. Like at this point, the conferences themselves are kind of like MLS. So this is a good example, right? So the criticism of MLS not having pro rel is that they gatekeep. But US Soccer, the organizing body, is sort of the NCAA equivalent here. US Soccer has said that they're fine with multiple Division I leagues. So in college football, that's like saying, all right, you're the Big Ten and the Big Ten's great and all, but if somebody wants to start the SEC, they can. And we can have a big debate as to which conference is better. And there's nothing stopping the Big 12 and all of its various schools from dumping so much money into their NIL collectives and everything else that could eventually challenge the SEC and Big Ten. I know that feels silly, but like where there is money, there is a way. We just saw SMU literally buy themselves into a power conference. Like this can happen. So in that sense, that this is still open because there's still a viable way to being in a top conference, or that other top conferences can exist. Where I think it is headed, though, is that the TV partners, they don't want multiple leagues that they all have to pay out a bunch of money to. That's not ideal. What they would like is one league, maybe two, but one league that they pay a ton of money to, but that nothing else competes with it, so that all of the eyeballs are there. So like if you pay the Big 10 4 times as much than you do the Big 12, you got to see at least 4 times as many eyeballs. And if that's not happening, you've got to change something. You pay less, or you start poaching the teams that bring in the eyeballs. Oklahoma and Texas are gone. USC and Oregon are gone. You know, you start poaching what is keeping that out of balance. So if I'm looking at this from a conference perspective, if I'm, Rutgers or Vandy or South Carolina even, I see this as, my conference is going great. We're doing good. We're making money. Our TV partners are on board. Everything is chugging ahead. Screw these other guys. Like I'm sticking out for what, I'm sticking up for what is good for the SEC right now and SEC near term. But if I were to sort of put on my predictor's cap here, I wouldn't be shocked if in the future we end up with a Big Ten SEC merger that says goodbye to the dead weight. And that means goodbye Purdue and Indiana. You're not bringing anything to the college football equation here. We don't need you. And yes, you need the small teams to beat up on, but that's fine. We'll make Michigan State the small team. We'll make Penn State the small team because they bring 100,000 people a home game and they watch the hell out of their team on cable. Like, that's fine. We don't need you anymore. South Carolina, you're cute and all, but nobody watches you on TV. They watch Clemson on TV. Clemson, you go ahead and take their spot. We don't need them anymore. Ole Miss and Mississippi State, I don't know. We need both of you guys. See ya. We'll have a massive pay-per-view fight. We'll do a one-off bowl game as to which one of you gets to stay in the combined college football division that we're creating, and the other one can go, I don't know, play Iowa State regularly. Have fun with that. Like, that's where it's headed, where you only need the NFL show. You only need 32 teams. So the idea of 36 teams, you're going to merge 2 16-team conferences. You don't need all those guys. Yeah. Baseball showed you can do it with 30. You don't need all 32 teams. So you can cut this down to where you end up with a 30-team college football conference that encompasses the whole country, that splits all of the prime TV spots with Fox and ESPN, ABC, and FS1. And there's no room for anybody else. And other people may very well want to watch UC. You won't have a great opportunity to. They'll be on a direct-to-consumer streaming option, and that'll be fun. And yeah, maybe we end up playing Toledo a little more than we wanted to because it saves on the travel costs. And we've got a loyal fan base that'll watch this team no matter what. But the fan bases, the TV audience, I should say, is clearly gravitating towards these larger teams, these super conferences, and it's not slowing things down. Like, at least with the teams that are raking in money, you don't see Ohio State fans upset at the state of college football and refusing to watch and refusing to buy tickets. That's just not happening. So why would they stop? And I'll go a step further. I will go a step further. By the time we get to 2050, and we should be there by the time we hit 2030, but by the time we hit 2050, we have already approached the point where NIL deals are far greater than what the NFL is paying, right? Like we've definitely seen that with Caitlin Clark and her professional league opportunities, but you see it with Caleb Williams, right? Like, anybody see that apartment he had in LA? Like, that's not cheap. You don't get that on a scholarship alone, all right? And that's not necessarily what he's going to be making right away in the NFL. It's a second contract kind of apartment he's got. But you've got these guys already making NFL money. You've got boosters that are willing to spend this money. And you've got NIL deals that are one and dones right now. Like, guys are on their deals and they hit the transfer portal and they look for bigger money. Once you start signing these guys as employees, which they need to do, what ends up happening is the NIL collectives become the for-profit owners of college football teams. And sure, they're fan-owned right now. They're fan-owned right up until Carl Linder decides to buy half of Cincy Reigns and therefore owns the Cincy Bearcats, college football team, right? But once you start signing these guys to 4-year contracts and they're making more than the NFL, why not 5-year contracts? Why not 6-year contracts? Why not 10-year contracts? Why do you need to go play for the Jets? They're terrible. You live like a king in Columbus for the rest of your life. We'll pay you $30 million a year, my guy. You don't need to go chase records in the NFL. This is the biggest league in town. This is the biggest team in town. You're gonna go trade your all-star status, your all-world status at Michigan to go play for the Detroit Lions as they go lose 10 seasons in a row. My guy, you're making more money here. You're winning more here. What is the advantage of the NFL anymore? I think college football and a super college football conference that is ultimately where this is all going competes with the NFL. And I think it can beat the NFL because there is a built-in fan base with college football in that there are undergraduates that is not built in the NFL. You're not an Arizona Cardinal fan because you still owe money to the Arizona Cardinals 15 years after you graduated from the Arizona Cardinals. All right. You are there because you chose them. You didn't have to choose them. You chose them. You lived your formative years on campus, bleeding those colors in those fan sections. Like, the NFL can't compete with that. Everybody will tell you that college football already has the better atmosphere. They have the better product. You add the money and the contracts to go with it, there's nothing slowing this thing down, which is terrifying if you're a UC Bearcat fan. Because I don't know how you avoid being the Xavier football team at that point.
One of the things that I wrote down that I wanted to talk about here, one of my concerns is if you're the NFL, you definitely don't want that to happen, right? Because you have more money than anyone. You're right. Don't pay taxes, I don't think, and all this other stuff, right? So how do you make sure that a super league like this doesn't compete with you? You own Sundays. How do you make sure that you continue to do that? And my thought is, I mean, there's NFL people involved in this, and you kind of were hinting on it there. How do you take away that built-in fan base? How do you take away those undergrads that are, chugging Cincy lights and headed down to historic Nipper Stadium on Saturdays? You find a way, as you were alluding to disconnect the school's athletic departments from the universities. Mm-hmm. And that would scare the hell out of me, right? Because then you don't have that allegiance and alliance anymore. It is literally a semi-professional, maybe even eventually professional league. And you were kind of like hinting on that, but then I was like, it was crazy. I was like, oh man, he's going exactly into this. But yeah, what if you can take those away and have athletic departments break off because you have Carl Linder who bought Cincy Reigns or owns the athletic department now because there's money to be made in it. That's a whole nother thing that I think that I would hate to see eventually happen. Like if that's like, step one or step two behind the curtains that we're not seeing on this slide deck and reporting, or maybe that's their ultimate goal, that would be absolutely terrible for college football.
Yeah, I think So if you're the NFL, the way you would do that is you would just have to start partnering with colleges to like make them the minor league team. Like you'd have to somehow get the Browns to make Ohio State like the Browns reserve team. And then like the Browns get the first right of every Ohio State player, and Detroit gets the rights of every Michigan player. And you have to like turn these schools into minor leagues. But man, there is so much money to be made here. I don't know how you can do it. And if you're a university, think about it this way. If you're a university, the athletics like rat race is killing a lot of these smaller schools. Only something like 60 college athletics departments are actually turning a profit. So if you even cut it down to 60, you could, dare I say, make it 64. And there's the only college teams that matter, right? Because there's your NCAA basketball tournament field right then and there. Like that's it, right? So what you could offer a school like the University of Cincinnati is, hey, you guys are spending a ton of money on your athletics department. You're having to charge students to keep this thing running. We'll offer you a better deal. We own the team, and you license us your team name and your mascot and all your branding, and we'll even rent the stadium from you. Heck, we'll buy Nippert Stadium from you, and we'll pay you a licensing fee every year. So all you have to do as University of Cincinnati is not go out of business, and you will continue to receive multi-million-dollar checks every single year, and we'll do it. We'll pay the players. If you want to offer them scholarships, that's fine. You don't have to anymore. Like we've divorced that concept completely right now. Maybe you offer them a spot post-playing, right? Maybe that's a nice little compensation package. We don't want them studying while they're playing because honestly, it's just going to take away time from them being good football players. So you've turn the equation to every school president of, hey, would you like to remove the largest headache you have in exchange for $10 million a year? Yeah, okay, deal. Where do I sign? That sounds awesome. And you will have every single college program that isn't in the top 15 of revenue earners signing that deal right away. And when they see how easy it is, the other 15 will follow. Like I feel like it's inevitable at this point. You already have what amounts to professional teams at this point, especially in college basketball. If you can't afford to pay all 10, 12 scholarship guys, what are you doing? You might as well just fold the program now. You see Duke is already struggling to keep guys, and these aren't even the one and dones off to the NBA. They're losing guys to schools that shouldn't even be in their orbit because of this. Like, if you're not paying these guys fully professional now, you're already missing the boat. And I think that gap only gets wider. I think that problem only gets larger. And yeah, these schools are going to eventually have to make that bargain of, we're no longer sponsoring this fully. We'll license you our stuff.
Well, it's funny because that concept, it's already kind of happened. The UAE has already put their hands into Florida State. If I understand correctly, Arizona State, actually, I think there was some talk there. And then the concept of universities sponsoring a pro team, that's not unheard of. Liga MX has some soccer teams that are.
Yeah. So this is actually, I'm so glad you brought this up. So this is actually super common in the rest of the world. So Liga MX, that is the Mexican soccer league for those not familiar, has at least one. I think they have two. I think Tigres might also be associated with one. But Pumas is probably the biggest one. The UNAM Pumas is the full abbreviation, the full name of the team. And Pumas is one of the most historic teams in Mexican soccer. They've been around forever. And they are also a university soccer team. They are sponsored by, quite literally, the largest university on earth. They have something like 100,000 undergraduates enrolled at any one time. They have some of the best programs on planet Earth in their various fields. In particularly, I want to say engineering. Like, if you're anyone who has any engineering aspirations and speaks Spanish, you want to be going to this school. And they have a fully professional team that plays what is essentially on campus with the track running around the stadium, and they have 60,000 people there, and it's a great time. They are not one of the largest spenders, but they have certainly maintained their position amongst the top Mexican teams. And just a couple of years ago, played the Seattle Sounders in the regional Champions League final. This was the tournament to determine the best team in North America, Central America, and the Caribbean. And they were, for all intents and purposes, the second best team in the region. Like, this is something that we have seen elsewhere. I want to say FC Cincinnati loaned a player out. I'm probably going to mess this up, but I'm pretty sure they loaned a player out to an Ecuadorian team that is run by the Catholic University in Quito. So, like, this is a very common thing that you will find in the rest of the world, of these universities sponsoring professional teams. And it's great. They're great advertisements for the schools, and it gives the student body something to do. And it's a fun little, hey, if you go to this school, you get to watch professional soccer. If you go to that school, you have to watch amateur soccer. It's like, whoa, all right. Well, that changes when it's football. You want to go watch professional football? Or you want to go watch amateur football? That's going to be a point of contention with there, or like I don't know, a benefit you're going to be able to offer potential students in the future. And yeah, for the purity of the game, we want amateurism to rule out. But do the players want amateurism? Do their families want amateurism? Like, who's the amateurism serving at this point? And yeah, if you're watching a product and one's professional, one's amateur, professional one's always better, right? Like, it very rarely is that not the case. Yeah, that is just going to have to change. I don't think that there's a sport in this world that has ever resisted that change once it started going. So
yeah, I mean, you see that, you see this, keeping it in the realm. You see this hot take dropped a lot when it comes to developing American soccer talent. It's like, it's over for the world if the hood discovers soccer, but that speaks to the industry of college basketball and college football and funneling these guys to the pros. Yeah. Because at the top of that, the industry is earth shattering. And who's to say, maybe, with NFL guys and pro sports guys involved with the CST group, that this isn't the plan. Maybe they don't start putting those suggestions, like looking for teams to sponsor. Maybe they don't. They break it up where it's like, okay, well, you got University of Cincinnati, you got Miami, NKU in this. Well, if they start a sports, in this region, Cincinnati Bengals, that belongs to you to sponsor. Yeah. And you can pull from this set of universities for your pool and draft pool. And who knows, maybe the number one player on each team is not allocated towards, those pro teams and is put to the general draft, where the worst team gets,
I got to mention this. Yeah. That's a great point. The NBA used to do that. There's a reason why the Big O played professionally in Cincinnati. There's a regional draft. So yeah, like what's old is new again. And yeah, I could see something like that as the sort of bargaining chip of the NFL wanting to maintain its relevancy.
Well, it's funny. I would, something else you said, about the fan bases, the established fan bases. A lot of times when I hear someone say, "Oh, I don't watch college football," maybe they are not affiliated with university, or they like pro better, they like the top division, but the purity and the pageantry and the passion of the sport, because of the amateurism that you see, at least the argument they're attempting to make for pro rel and other sports, is what draws people. I think is the biggest draw to keep people in this sport, is because they do it the right way and for not the wrong reasons. But we're also going back to a point, Leatherheads, the movie, where a time where college football was bigger than the pros. It's basically, it's going to be interesting to see that college football is going to be the first concept in America to adopt some of these other concepts from, again, pro soccer, whether it's promotion, relegation, maybe sporting clubs in some way, where they sponsor all sports, and like you see the guys with the flares in basketball and in Euro League and things like that, and your universities are sponsored by your pro teams. I'd almost giving some thought. I'm almost more willing to think that maybe that is their step number 2, 3. However far down the track. The question is, is this good for the sport? I guess does it keep the product not necessarily pure, but does it keep it a product you want to watch? How do you make it so that college football is still watchable and you still get that mystique of going on to watch your favorite player in the pros? But
yeah. I mean, that is the concerning thing, right?
Yeah.
Is that like where this is headed and where the various guardrails were put up has ultimately forced, I think, all of us into this direction. And to be clear, I think this is really bad for the sport. I think that this will ultimately harm the overall product of the sport. I think that is not good. And in particular, as a UC fan, this is very not good for UC. Look, like we were probably the last team out, right? In the round of realignment back in like 2010. And while it feels good to be in the Big 12, go check the Big 12. Who was all in the Big 12 the first time around when we won it in, and see who's there now. Yeah. Look, there are much worse places for our university to be. It is not the Big 12 that we all wanted to join. All right. I think we can all admit that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the resistance to paying players forced this. I think the resistance to multi-year scholarships forced this. The fact that guys could not sign to a team and be given a 4-year guarantee of their scholarship allows for the transfer portal. And once you start allowing coaches to leave ahead of contracts, you can't let the players stay there. And COVID helps play a role in this. They stop mandating the 1 year, pause before you're allowed to go elsewhere. And all of a sudden, guys are getting paid NIL money. There are no contracts, and it's just a free for all. And already people are upset with the product. And so the first Super League that shows up and says we're doing 4-year guaranteed contracts, we're doing, actually paying the players. There's going to be a standard pay rate and a pay scale. People are going to look at that and say, finally, some common sense for the sport. When in reality, you've just codified the top 26 teams, top 30 teams into being the top 30. They will kick out the ladder underneath them. And yeah, the Cincinnati's, the Miami, Ohio's, I mean, like I said, Indiana and Purdue. I'm nervous if I'm them. If I'm Northwestern, I don't think that this future includes me. Media markets don't matter, Rutgers. Like the Big Ten is not desperate to sell the Big Ten network anymore. The next big money deal is going to be with Amazon or Apple or Netflix or whatever else. It's not with Time Warner. It's not with, the Bright House or whoever the cable partner is down south. The future is not good for the overall health of the sport. The one thing, though, that it is beneficial for, I think, is ultimately the players. All of this is beneficial to the players, and I think that needs to be recognized that, sure, the accounting degree or whatever. Actually, you see, it's all criminal justice, right?
Yeah, it's always criminal justice, yeah.
Because the criminal justice building is right next to all the athletic buildings, so they don't have to go interact with the general population, and it's pretty easy to pull these guys out of class without anybody noticing. Yeah, there's a reason why, all right? It's not that they all want to be cops. The program was set up in a certain way. I think that this has been beneficial for the players generally, but man, I'm telling you, like when you start getting to the idea of maybe not competing college football in the NFL, but I think about this, like Desmond Ridder, right? Amazing college football quarterback. Not the best we've ever seen, but amazing college football quarterback. The idea that he had to go to the NFL where everybody knew he would struggle at best. He'd find a role as a journeyman, which we're seeing play out, right? Why do we have to force him out of college where he's good? Why couldn't he stay at UC for another 3-4 years, make a lot of NIL money, and play for the school and everybody be happy? Like, that's where I think it becomes interesting. Of like Tim Tebow is kind of the prototypical example for me of like he had to go to the NFL where everybody knew he would suck, or he could have played for 10 more years at Florida and been a legend. Like, why did he have to be forced out the door? I think whatever this future is, I think they are not needing to be forced out the door. And I think that might be good. I don't know. Obviously, it limits the opportunities for other guys, but I think that might be good overall.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's a lot of decisions that brought us here. Not just the
Right.
the resistance to pay them, but the media, Big 10 network, the Longhorn network, stuff like that really pushed this in that direction. Brandon, I know we kind of went back and forth, but throw some more of your thoughts there.
No, I mean, the only other question I had about all this, like when I got to the end of the article and it said that this was only for college football, I kind of thought, what was the point of all of this then? Like, you want, like, I know football drives the bus and it's the money. I get that. I understand that. But so to expect the fan bases and to expect, the universities to, after, an exciting football season in this Super League, when basketball season rolls around, we're all going back to being in the Big 12 and the SEC and whatever. Like that, how does that make any sense? Like, I feel as though that's a little short-sighted on their part here, to bring the article back into it. I don't understand how this only is supposed to be for college football, especially if they're trying to dump the NCAA and have this governing body. Like, I know the differences are huge, but basketball still makes a lot of money, especially, like the $1 billion tournament that we just had in March. So how do you just say, oh yeah, you guys can go back to being in your crappy little conferences now for, the rest of the year? I don't understand how that works.
Well, I think this kind of goes back to, I mentioned it briefly, the sporting clubs, international soccer, some of those bigger teams, specifically looking at the Bundesliga, a lot of those they belong to multi-sport organizations that drive them. They obviously the soccer is the big moneymaker, but college basketball, I think some professional track too, maybe. Or not, I say college pro basketball, track. I think if they have time to go back and look at this, because I think they're rushing out because they have to. They have to get a concept out there, one to save themselves and hitch their wagon. Get the smaller teams like the UCs on board to also make the push, not to be left behind. And if they had a chance, I think they would be wise to look at that, making sporting organizations, maybe attach the whole, like you said, the whole athletic department for this, and just call it a day. Yep.
Yeah. No, Darin, to your point, I wanted to quickly look this up because this is very funny to me. Barcelona, one of the largest soccer brands, they also sponsor a basketball team, a handball team, a futsal team, a roller hockey team, and an esports team. and like you said, that's one of the smaller ones, right? Eastern European clubs in particular are all over. They'll have water polo teams and equestrian teams and rugby teams in particular up in England and stuff like that. So yeah, it is interesting to see where that goes. I don't know. Maybe whatever this, where I imagine this to kind of what I think the article and therefore the CST group is maybe trying to head off of a super conference, a merger between the Big 10 and the SEC. I think if you end up with, say, 32 teams, that's pretty good. You could just invite 32 other teams. So maybe you invite Cincinnati, or maybe you invite 10 G League teams to play in your basketball tournament, right? Yeah. Like at a certain point, you start choking off interest in other college athletics generally. And again, not good for everything here that we're discussing, but like that would be the ultimate goal of some sort of merged conference. It would be to kill off interest in all of the other conferences, all of the other schools. Because if you are this merged conference, so imagine like an SEC Big 10 merger, right? If you are that, you can't have UC get popular. You need to own the Cincinnati TV market and eyeballs and fandom. You need to do whatever you can to kill that off. And if that means, paying off other schools to leave conferences and go independent and sponsoring these, middling brands that couldn't quite make the cut, but you also don't want them to start forming something that could compete against you. Yeah, maybe you just start paying a little stipend off the side to make sure UConn and Notre Dame stay independent, and make sure, Texas A&M is happy with everything, and make sure Texas Tech doesn't get too big for what they're trying to do or whatever. Like there's weird things that would be happening, I think, to start choking off interest around the sport, which again would be bad. I just I want to be clear about that like I see it going this way and I'm not happy about it. It's very, very depressing.
Yeah. I think the excitement for us is to see our name mentioned in the
that's
the
true.
slide.
This
That's
is
about
good.
it. Yeah, that's about it. It's like we're not on the sinking ship this time. We're not stuck in the Big East re-American. We're on the front foot, or at least invited to help facilitate this coup. And that G League idea isn't unlike the concept for American football in Japan. The semi-pro, they used to have a competition within the year where the top semi-pro and the top college team would play each other. 9 times out of 10, it was the semi-pro team that won. But yeah, Kevin, you have been totally generous with your time. I know you have some other podcasts to attend to. I look forward to listening to that. After a win. One more time for the people watching this now and later, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find us at thepostcincy.com. It's probably the easiest place to find us, or on wherever you found this podcast. You can go search the Cincy PostCast, all one word, PostCast, and you should find us. So otherwise, I'm at Mr. Kevin Wallace on Twitter. And I want to say thank you so much for the opportunity. This is something that I obviously have a lot of takes and opinions and thoughts and feelings on, and I don't get to always express them on a soccer podcast. So this was fantastic, gentlemen. I really appreciate the time and the opportunity.
Appreciate you coming out. Cheers.
Thank you.
That was a great discussion. Even better than I could have dreamed of. How'd you do dealing with some of the foreign concepts of soccer, structure and promotion, relegation, and all that?
The pro rail has always intrigued me. I like the concept of that. I really like the sponsoring of smaller teams and non-soccer related avenues. That is really different to me. I did not know that. So that's sort of an interesting piece into that world that like I said, I wasn't familiar with. So, but good stuff all around. Very, a lot of what ifs we discussed, and a lot of that is just guessing about stuff that we don't know. But great conversation.
Yeah, it's funny, not mentioned in there. The concept around pro rel, especially in the American soccer Twitter space. A lot of people obviously, when they meet someone who's in soccer, hardcore, especially probably a decade ago, they probably kind of got the concept or the image of being smarmy and sort of up their own butt a little bit about watching the sport and being different. I think an issue we have with the discourse, at least in the community, the American soccer community, is the idea because people want to grow the sport, is the idea of pro rel, and they think that's going to save, our recruitment and the players we get and really grow the sport. And while it makes for a good entertainment concept and storylines, the idea doesn't change that money rules rules the sports world. There's other ways to get what you want. And he mentioned the Premier League. The top team is totally bought out by oil money. They have huge backing, and there's claims and cries for them to be punished because of potential spending issues and violations, and that won't go away if something like this gets off the ground for college football. The top teams will still get their cut, and even the article mentions that the Alabama's and Notre Dame's will get a better cut. So something to be wary of. The grass is not always greener, but also it seems like these teams try to hitch their wagon to greener pastures. again, thanks to Kevin for joining us today. Now we kind of whip back around to UC specific. A lot of news this week, actually, still. Specifically in the basketball world.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, we got some men's and women's. Yeah.
Sort of the women.
Yeah, let's go to the women's. Yeah.
When's the last time UC? I know the rating system has not always been around, but when's the last time UC got any 5-star recruit in any sport? Like, DeMar Johnson was like the number 1 recruit in the country before they had those. I mean, I think he definitely would have been a 5-star had that rating system been there. But he might have been the last one before D. Alexander from Purcell Marion just, committed to the University of Cincinnati and Coach Merriweather's basketball team. Phenomenal get. I did not have a lot of faith in her choosing the Bearcats.
No. Not at all. When we heard we made a top 3, you're like, okay, well, it's been a good run. It's time for her to go to Ohio State,
Yeah.
But then the second where like you see Chad and some other news anchors posted up in front of UC for the announcement.
Yeah, I'm like
sort of giving the game away there, unfortunately. Like, but because I'm like, there's no way they would come to do their backdrop here and then announce they go to Ohio State and
right. We started spring workouts for the basketball team on Tuesday. I think that's when she announced, and I had been off my phone for like 2 hours after school, so I had no idea. Mm-hmm. And I opened up to a bunch of text messages, mainly my buddy Nick Smith, who texted me. He's like, "I can't believe she's coming here," and immediately I knew what it was. So he broke the news to me in a text. I was like behind on the announcement and everything. So I didn't see I know she. What was it, WLWT or one of the news stations?
WLWT had the right to stream that announcement.
The camera pop up and the Big O statue. Like I would have been like if I was watching that live and I would have saw that, I would have been ecstatic right there. Like you're not coming to UC's campus to announce that you're not coming to UC's campus,
right?
That wouldn't make any sense at all. If I envisioned that she'd be in the gym at Purcell.
Yeah, right.
Got the hat thing, or they've come up with crazy creative ways of announcing colleges. But when I think college, selection or announcement, I just think table and hats. That's a kind of tradition at this point. But dang,
yeah,
she's class of 2025, so she will not be on campus next year. She's just finished her junior season. So she's got who knows? She might get another national or state championship. With Purcell this year.
Yeah, she is so decorated already for 3 years. So I guess the concept and the challenge for Coach Merriweather is to keep touching base with her, where you can legally, within the rules, and make sure the interest is still strong by the time she graduates. Maybe Ohio State makes a push later, or but if not, this is a program defining moment. And they mentioned in the Discord. This is before she announced, like, who do you think would get the 5-star first? Right. Wes or Merriweather. And Merriweather, those are in 2, with Wes having a 4-year head start at this point. So, this is hopefully a program deciding moment. And not to put too much pressure on it. These are kids still.
Yeah.
I
mean, they have help coming in with Chloe Mann this year. She's don't overlook her.
Yeah,
I think she's going to be able to come in and Jillian Hayes announces that she's coming back.
Yeah,
the momentum. I don't know if we used the word momentum, but we said it was this year was a solid start. They were ahead of schedule, and they just Merriweather hit the accelerator and is flooring that right now. Holy cow! Definitely a lot of momentum heading into year 2 for her. And
because they're playing her style of ball. They understand her concepts. They bought in, and even when they got beat down a few times, they still kept pushing. So and it's a great start, especially with one of your alumni at the helm. That's always the dream for college sports. Really any sport is that one of your prodigal children come back and lead you to the promised land. And do it with pride, and there's no fear they'll ever leave you, or just things like that. Went over to men's basketball, transfer carousel silly season.
Yeah, buddy.
2 confirmed in Hickman and Page. Sean Stewart, maybe, who knows?
I think there's some smoke there. We talked about Hickman coming over on the last episode.
Mhm.
That was out, and then Arrington Page kind of right after we released,
Mhm.
he committed. But that was a guy that I thought Wes Miller was going to land him.
Yeah.
Out of high school a year ago. He was,
Yeah.
recruited him as hard as anyone. And with Isaiah Collier, who he was recruiting, he ended up being like top 5 in the country. He went to USC,
Yeah.
right? So he had lost out to both of those guys to be Trojans, and then coaching, carousel, whatever the ripple effect that happened with several schools gets Page in the transfer portal, and that was a quick announcement. I think that you never know when those relationships that you build are going to come back and play, especially now in college sports. So, his numbers don't jump off the page to you if you look up the stats. But I mean, he will benefit greatly with an offseason in the Monster Factory. And he was a high 4-star coming out of high school. I'm excited to see what he has for us. And Sean Stewart, again, he might be he might need to beef up a little bit. He's like 6'9", 220 or something at Duke this year. He only played like 3 minutes a game, so his stats again aren't crazy, but definitely an athletic kid that could add depth to the small forward / power forward position, depending on how you run it. But yeah, we'll see if that smoke catches fire here this week or later on as well. And I think it's probably worth note. Vic landed at Clemson. That was kind of, I don't know. A lot of people, I guess, expected him to go back down to the American or something. But he finds a nice landing spot in the ACC, which we know that's not the easiest conference in the world either. So we'll see. Hopefully, he can find his way back into the good graces of the basketball gods.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because we even have eyes on someone from South Florida.
I saw that today.
Case in Prairie. Ford. He's a junior this year, but I'm guessing he probably has, unless he already used that COVID year. But we at least have a year with him. 6'10", out of Chicago, so at least a Midwestern at that point. And USF wasn't too bad this year. Kind of ran the table there for a good unbeaten streak. So really struggling against UAB, who was the person in the team in the conference this year. So that's kind of how things are destined to go in mid majors now. You run the table a little bit, and you're destined to get you guys picked off. Unfortunately, but I mean, as Kevin also mentioned earlier, Duke's losing guys to people you wouldn't expect. So, keep your eyes out, keep them peeled. We could have some good things coming, and keep building out. Baseball.
Got the sweep today, didn't we?
We did not. So we.
I thought we. Damn.
No. We beat EKU. Got right against EKU on Tuesday, 12-2, 8 innings. So we ruled them. Was really hoping to kind of take the overall series on Wednesday against Xavier. That was at home. We lost 4-6, unfortunately. So another rivalry dropped this year in the sports. I think they took it overall in men's basketball and baseball, and then we took it in women's basketball this year.
We were in women's basketball.
Yeah, we've been in women's basketball. We took it in women's. Yeah. So 2-1 in overall, I guess, I think. Well, actually, I need to check that soccer score. I forgot about that for women's soccer. I have to go back and look. But, we played Houston this weekend. We did take the series 2-1. We were looking to get the sweep today, but unfortunately, Houston kind of came to play in the end there. 8-5 was the score. They really kind of were we came out to an early lead, and then they answered, pulled within 1 in the 4th inning, and really kind of start rolling from there. And we had the lead through to 6, so even at that point we were up 5-4 in the 6th inning. But then it was all Houston after that. I think we just kind of ran out of juice in the pitching game there. Some errors that you're going to get. I think this young pitching staff can only be hot for so long, and there's no quitting them though. I'll say that. So we're never out of a game. It's just that we're going to have our bad days, unfortunately, when I almost say performing above expectation. Maybe not. If you ask Coach Bishop, maybe we're not performing above expectation on that. That's what he expects of his pitchers. But we dropped a day. Really would have been helpful to get that sweep, because we don't get an easier time after this. It is the buzzsaw, the meat grinder that I mentioned. We got UCF. They did follow the rankings after losing to West Virginia, but they were ranked the other week, as high as number 17 in the country. We have West Virginia after that, Indiana, Ohio State, BYU. BYU is the second worst in the conference, but still very competitive. That is where you'd look to pick up a win on a series, though, on the back end. And then, of course, Oklahoma, who's just one of the top teams in the conference, if not already at the top at this point. So it's going to be tough sledding. At that point, you're hoping to, try to win the UCF series. It's going to be tough, but you hope to try to win the UCF series. But still win at West Virginia, or at home with West Virginia, win the BYU series, and see if you can't still win against Oklahoma to at least keep us middle of the pack. So we have a place in the tournament, the Big 12 tournament, in May. But it's going to be tough. They're going to have to be playing some solid ball and bounce back when they get hit. So it's going to be interesting to watch. I implore everybody to tune in. The home series, next home series is going to be West Virginia, May 3rd. We take on UCF this week, Friday through Saturday. And we're going to be at Ohio State on the 30th of April. And then road trip BYU, UConn at home. Indiana is also away, actually, May 7th. And then senior night will be against Oklahoma, May 18th. Of course, we'll talk more about that as weeks come on. So,
absolutely,
yeah,
good stuff. Good stuff. We Kevin Wallace is great. I was like thinking here. He did a we had a series on YouTube going. I've been trying to bring it back here recently, but he did the Time for a Beer series on YouTube. You could preview a beer for us on the Catskeller Social Club channel, which you should be subscribed to. So yeah, definitely a friend of the podcast now and friend of Bearcats fans everywhere. Kevin Wallace. Yeah, so, good stuff there. We'll be back again next week. Right, we'll figure something out. I'm sure there'll be something to talk about between now and then. We'll figure it out.
Always,
yeah. Good stuff, Darin. I'm gonna go take a nap and try to get my head straight here again today. Although I did learn a lot about European soccer
and how it goes into the college football model. There you go.
Yeah, buddy. We'll see. All right. Well, I don't have anything else. You have anything else?
No. Cheers. Go Bearcats.
Go Bearcats.